Hey, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us this Tuesday morning for Irregular Republic, episode 7. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about the Iran War from a strategic perspective and kind of uh, why I think, and I got a guest on, Will, and we'll see what he thinks too. Maybe he agrees with me, maybe he doesn't. But why I think that this war in Iran was Trump's way to kind of push back against the New World Order, the globalist push, the multi-polarity push we're seeing from Dugan, and a bunch of other things. So that's what we're going to be discussing today in the show. Let me bring up Will here. Will, good morning. How you doing, bro?
Doing good. How you doing?
Good, man. Good. Great to have you on. Thanks for joining us. How about just introduce yourself real quick to everybody and kind of let them know who you are and what you're about, and we'll get into it.
Yeah, my name's Will. I was a United States Navy corpsman. Did my 4 years, got out, got into information technology, retired several years ago, and now I kind of fly drones when I'm not online complaining about what's going on in this republic. That's kind of my focus nowadays. Is I can't sit and watch what's going on without getting involved. So
yeah,
that's kind of what's going on with me.
Yeah, and I wanted to bring you on because one, I just wanted to have a conversation with. So it's hard to find normal people out there. I mean, there's a lot of my followers are awesome. They're all normal and realistic and everything. But we had that interaction a few days ago where you commented on something and you misinterpreted or just misread something the way it was, and we kind of were like, well, what are you talking about? And then you were like, oh crap, that was my bad. I misread that, I apologize and everything. And I was like, dang, dude, that's pretty cool. Like most people today are not going to just like admit that they were, even if it's something silly, right? That's what's crazy about it. Like they won't admit that they were wrong about something silly and just be an adult and be like, hey, my bad. I enjoy what you're doing. My bad. Let's move on. And that's what you did. And I was like, you know what, this dude, we should have a conversation and just kind of two Americans, with different, I'm sure we have some different viewpoints on things, but
Sure.
I think we can sit down and talk about what's kind of best for America, and then give our views on what's going on in Iran and what's going on globally on this. So,
Absolutely, yeah. I run Fast and Furious a lot of times because there's just so much going on. And I remember seeing a post, and I thought someone was attacking you. You kind of just come onto my radar like a week or so before, and I hit pretty hard, and you called me out on it. Thank you for that, by the way, because if I fall really short of the mark, which I did, I expect to be called out. And I guess you can just put it down to how I was raised. I didn't, when you were like, dude, I was like, oh man. And I didn't want to say anything. Then I was like, you're parenting in the back of your head. It was like, no. So I said something, and yeah, it was funny that I was amazed at the reaction from people that I guess a little integrity goes a long ways nowadays. I'm not sure.
It does, man. I mean, like, I've been wrong. Sometimes you gotta own it and you just move on and like, hey, that was wrong of me. Maybe we should, or I should have thought about this way, or I didn't read it all the way, or whatever happens. Move on. It's not a big deal. You just see a lot of people, they have this like strategy that they just can never admit that they were wrong, and they never could admit that they were duped. And then, here we are. Here we sit with this generation of people that are just willing to stand by something that they know is a lie after the fact, just because they don't want to admit that they were duped by it, which is kind of crazy to me. So
it is so easy to sell a lie, but the truth, yeah, it takes forever. And I think that's something that we, as a country, need to work on a little bit. I think we all have some work to do, maybe a little growing up to do. We've had it better than any place on this planet. And I think that I'm kind of glad things are going the way they are, because it's going to wake this country up. And I think that a lot of the things that are going on aren't going to fly for a very long time because of it. I am hopeful with the amount of people that I see joining the fight.
Yeah. Well, and I think the online, world is obviously different than the real world, right? It's much louder, it's much more black pilled, and you only hear the loudest voices, which are, you know, the influencers or these people with these massive accounts. And then
Yes.
you either the bots or just what I call them NPCs. There's a lot of NPCs out there
Yes.
that just mimic whatever they're saying. And so then it's easy to fall into this kind of melancholy of like, oh, we're losing and we're really not, you know, like none of these people, none of these big, you know, terrible, like Nick Fuentes has no power in the actual polls or in the actual voting demographic. Like
Right.
most of the people that follow him probably didn't vote anyways. And even if they did, they probably voted Democrat, you know, like,
Right.
let's just be honest about it. They're not the type of people that are like running out there to go vote for Trump regardless. So I think it's easy for him to act like he has all these followers that were like huge Trump fans and stuff, just because like he kind of jumped on the MAGA train at one point to boost his voice, which is what a lot of these people did, honestly. So, but when you go in the real world, you know, just like I do, you go talk to normal people, and all these online kind of problems that we see, and this whole, you know, view of the world is just it's not as drastic as X or, you know, Instagram or some of these other ones that are, or TikTok, I guess you would say, are kind of making it out to be. So I think it's important.
I agree. You've got to get out and touch grass, people. You have to.
Dude,
this isn't the real world here.
Yep. I went 15 miles out up in the URA Sunday, and it was amazing. And it's just, you know, getting in nature, not doing anything else. Like it's a good reset. And I definitely encourage those that have never just went hiking. You don't have to go, like, I call mine kind of like ruck hiking, where I'm like right. moving the whole time. But that's right. kind of that's my mindset of like, that's my peace of mind. Some people want to go meander and just look at nature. Mine's like, I get into this, like, we're just going, you know, and me and the dogs, we just go. And then I get into like a different kind of thought process where I can really think about things that, I guess it just quiets the world down, and I can actually think about things critically for a long time without any kind of interruptions. And that's why I love it. I love it so much. So
for me, I'm up at 1 a.m. every morning, and there's no one else in the house up. So I get my best work done from like 1 a.m. to 6 a.m.
Oh yeah, I'll do that. I'll wake up at 5, you know, in the morning sometimes to get stuff done. My wife will be like, "You're crazy. Why are you getting up so early?" Like, no, like, I'm like, well, it's really only an hour or two earlier than I'm going to wake up anyway. And there's no toddlers yelling at me at 5 a.m. You know, there's nothing I have to get done at 5 a.m. I can just go and get the work done I need to get done. So I feel you on that for sure. So
yeah, let's make focus.
Yeah. Hey, everybody, real quick, if you can, please like and share and subscribe and all the things. If you're in X, share and repost and all that stuff. And if you're on YouTube, or if you would like to go to YouTube and help me out there on YouTube, we're trying to get the YouTube growing a little bit. It's getting there. I think we're at like 1,200 nice. Subscribers on there, which is, it's growing. But trying to get that one built a little bit more. So if you could help me out there, please go like there and subscribe and share the stream, and then we'll jump into it. So I'm gonna give my kind of view of the Iran war. Kind of lay out a few different things that I'm thinking about, and then you tell me kind of what you think about that, Will, like from especially from like the Navy perspective, having that view into it a little bit more than I have. But the way I look at it is that, one, you know, when you come into the presidency, right? Like Trump comes in, he came in 2016, saw a bunch of stuff, but I think a lot of stuff was hidden from him as well. Because he used the normal transition team that the White House always had used before, which is kind of like it was supposed to be a non-biased team, but like clearly they're definitely more biased to the deep state and to like protecting the way that the status quo had become, especially under Obama. And I think he didn't see the full picture of the world until it was kind of too late. And that's why I think 2016 was a little hindered, that along with COVID and all that happened. So then we get Biden, we get the mess at the border, we get the influx of all these people that we have no idea where they are now, or, you know, I mean, we've got a lot of people out, that's one of the talking points that people are saying right now is like, they're not deporting enough people. Like, well, we've deported, I think we're on track to, we already deported almost 300 something, over 1.5 million or 2 million have self-deported because of the policies that Trump in placed. And I think they're looking at that there's going to be another million. I think it'll be 1 million total by the end of this year or next year. Like they're on track to do certain things, but you also have to remember they're getting hit by Democrats and they're getting court cases pushed against them all the time that they have to defeat. And so it's a process, right? So he sees that. And then he sees the world. He sees China and Russia, and he sees the multi-polarity push that we've been identifying now for months. And I'm pretty sure he saw that long before we did, obviously. And he kind of saw the way, the EU has been going, and he realized something. He's like, they are trying to subvert the United States power over the world. They're trying to make a world where the globalists have more of a say than the United States has. Right. And from a America First perspective, I don't like that, and I don't think Trump likes that either. And so I think that he looked at the map, and he was like, strategically, what can we do? Like, how do we join this battle that's happening right now? Because it's a war, right? It's a war that's happening. It's just not a war like Russia and Ukraine is a war. It's a war where Russia and China and some other and really some European nations too are assisting in it, are helping Iran and some of these other nations and Venezuela before do things to hinder U.S. like the U.S. progression and U.S. What do I want to call it, like dominance in the world. And he was like, how do we fight back about this? How do we fight back this? Because we don't want to go to war with China, right? We don't want to go to war with Russia. I mean, they're I would have said peer adversaries, and maybe China's a peer adversary, but after what happened in Iran, I'm kind of thinking there might be a little less than peer.
Near peer?
Maybe near peer. At this point. But I think he saw Iran, which is a proxy of China and Russia. Yeah. And he was like, we have an opportunity here. They already have an uprising happening because terrible leadership for so long can only last for so long before the populace is eventually going to fight back. So you had that ripe, and then you have the Gulf states and the other Middle Eastern Muslim countries that are just tired of Shia Muslims just disrupting everything and ruining, what they're trying, because they're trying to join the world too. They're trying to they want to keep some of their customs, right? But they also want like modernized cities. They want Western tourists to come and bring their money and like bring, like all the stuff they want to join the world in that facet. And so they're wanting the same thing too. And I think Trump was like, you know what? Then we get the report that they have, 1,000 kilograms, right? 1,000 kilograms, almost 1,000 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium, which means that they were about 2 to 3 weeks potentially away from being able to make 10 to 11 nuclear bombs. And that's another thing people don't realize either. It's like they have the real intel, right? Like Trump and the Joint Chiefs and all of our higher level intelligence community people, they have the real intel. And so we go in to fight back finally in this proxy war against China and Russia. And that's what we're really doing. So that is my kind of overarching view of why we went into Iran and why we went in when we did, and kind of where we're at now. We'll talk a little bit more about it now, but that's kind of, what do you think? You agree with that, or you got anything?
I do, and I think that we also need to add Venezuela into that because that's a large portion. It was all about cutting off China's supply of oil. They were getting oil from Venezuela, they're getting oil from Iran, and now that's been cut off. So what does that do? That probably takes Taiwan off the table. Mm-hmm. How is China going to take Taiwan on when they don't have fuel? So I think that part of working against the New World Order, that took China and in essence Russia off the table. It reduced the number of moves that they can make.
Right.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, if you're working on a fuel deficit, right, and your supply chain is disrupted, that disrupts all of your plans moving forward. So any plans you had to do anything, right now, they have to be drawn because you have to reestablish the supply lines from somewhere else. And one, they might be unreliable. They may be from a source that you don't know. Oil from different areas is different. Like, that's another thing people don't realize. They don't realize that like crude oil in Venezuela is much different than crude oil from Texas, right? They don't understand the differences in how they have to be refined. They don't understand the differences in how they like all the things, right? So there's a lot that goes into this. There's a lot of thought process that goes into this. And there's a lot of decision making that goes into this based off of a lot of information that most people just don't even know that they don't know, So that's one of the hard things trying to explain to people. Like, and you can't, there's like, I could spend all day replying to all of the trolls that come in and they're like, how does this help America? It doesn't. I'm like, I can explain to you 50 different ways it helps America, but you don't want to hear any of them. And I don't know that you're even intelligent enough to actually understand any of them. So why would I waste my time? Because if you really wanted to know, you would be seeking out those answers from people that actually do know. You wouldn't be getting them from, these influencers that don't actually know anything. Like that's what's crazy to me is like Mario Fall and all these dudes like Nick Fuentes, whatever, all these people, like most of them, they aren't even posted on their own accounts anymore. Right. Most of them, they've hired teams that are doing independent research and then posting. And they're usually, some of them, they may not even have an approval process. They may just be like, as long as it fits into this part of what my narrative is, post it. And so
it has to be if you look at the amount of content they're pumping out.
Right.
As a content creator, you understand you can't pump that much content out.
Dude, no. Like I mean, I just put an article out today, and I've been working on it since end of last week. And I wanted to get it out yesterday morning, but then I had rewrote it a little bit and changed a few things. And it's just like these people that are pushing stuff out, like they're not pushing stuff out that's real. They're either aggregating just a bunch of AI and pushing it out as that, or they have teams of people that are doing the same and then kind of just putting it onto posts and just and that's why you see some of these you'll see them flip-flop on issues a lot of times. It's just because that was a different person that posted that one than this. So the problem is, and I think in the article I just put out, let me see, where did it go? The United States is not being defeated, it's being divided. So the article I just put out this morning, I think it's an important read for people just to understand. Again, this is not novel. It's not anything that's when you read it, you're not gonna be like, oh my God. You're gonna read it and you're gonna be like, dude, like it's common sense.
Yeah.
And like, how did I not understand that this is what's happening? How did I not understand that the world has changed now? Like, it's no longer, we don't get media straight from the big media, right? From CNN, from MSNBC, from Fox, all the things where you're like, oh, Fox is slanted this way, they're slanted this way, Reuters is slanted this way, Vanity Fair is this way, whatever. That now you have to do that on an individual basis per person that you're listening to on the internet. So whatever influencer or podcaster, you have to go through what they're putting. You have to critically think about it, and then you have to research and make sure that what they're putting out is, and you have to constantly do that now. This is the new reality that I think people just need to understand, is that it doesn't matter how long you followed someone and trusted them. Like even if you followed me for years, when I put something out, you still need to go check it yourself and make sure that it's right. And it is, it goes along with what your belief system is and like what everything, right? You shouldn't just be like, oh, well, he's a trusted source and I believe everything he's going to say no matter what. Right.
Yeah, no, I always tell people, don't believe me. Look up everything I say.
Right.
Don't believe me.
So
if I can get it wrong.
Yeah. So you have kind of a different view of the New World Order. Not a different view, but you have a view, and I'm a little skeptical about it, but I do want to hear your breakdown of this view, and then I want to talk about it a little bit, because I feel like this is the way you hash out realities, in this crazy information environment that we have today, is to just let's talk about them, because you put it through what I like to do is I like to put it through the disproving test. So I try to disprove it in every way possible I can. And then if I can't disprove it, right, by all these different methods, then there's a higher possibility that that's probably true information. Again,
Right.
it doesn't mean
Right.
that it's 100% true. It just means that now there's a higher possibility that that is true, and
Right.
proceed with caution still. But you're at least more educated about the thing. So tell me about your kind of view on like Trump coming in, and in your view of like the Q stuff and how that all fits into to fight against the New World Order.
Well, basically the story goes that senior members of the military recruited Trump to run because they saw the republic being destroyed from within. He ran, he won, and they started to post on 4chan what they called the plan. And it's not just a plan, it's historical information on the big families and the crime syndicates and all the stuff that's going on in the world right now where you're like, this is not right. They recruited civilians like myself and like what they call us anons, which I'm not anymore, obviously, because I'm on camera. But we researched everything that they gave us, and now they set their plan in motion. It was probably 2016 when the plan literally got put into motion. It is the most derided group of people on the planet for all times. They have put $1 trillion group of people against us to come up with the craziest propaganda I have ever heard.
So you're talking the New World Order people, the
New World Order people, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
The very people that Trump is trying to take down are spending every penny they have to shut down any opposition. Q and Anons, because there is no QAnon. QAnon is a dog whistle that was created to deride, it's QAnon is conspiracy theorist of today. That's what it means. If you're studying that QAnon stuff, you have to be crazy. I noticed that they always attack those of us that do the studying. They don't ever really attack the message. So what I always tell people, look, I'm not here to convert you. I'm not selling you anything. I spent almost a year going through, 4,966 posts. That was a lot of work. And it gave me an understanding of the big picture. And I always will gladly debate anyone that's taken a little bit of time and done their due diligence. Because again, I'm not infallible. I could be absolutely wrong. So that's why I say do your homework, research it. And when you've done that, then we can sit and discuss the substance. You know what I mean?
All right. So tell me where someone would start. Say you wanted to look into this, right? And you wanted to, and again, so everybody that has ever watched any of my stuff or anybody that's followed me for a while, like I don't push conspiracy theories. I don't push nonsense. What I push is you going out and ingesting information, thinking about it critically, researching it against primary sources, and then making your own decision from it there. So in that light, where would you tell people to start? And then like what are you looking for? What are we, why are we, and then what's even the purpose? Is the purpose just so that we understand better that, that there is groups of powerful people out there that are trying to kind of, I don't want to say rule the world. I hate the whole, like, because that gets turned into this whole, then that's easy to flip into this whole, the Jews rule the world, or the whatever's rule the world, and that leads into this whole us versus them. And so, but there are absolutely people, there are powerful people, there are wealthy people in the world that, that want to affect the world in certain ways. Right.
Yes.
And the United States and some of the United States allies keep them from doing that. So from that standpoint, I do believe that that is absolutely plausible, that there are people working in cohorts that are well funded and that are that have levels of power that gives them sway across, you know, multiple platforms or across the world. But again, so if someone were to start this, who do they need to follow, and then what are they looking, like, what are they researching, what are they looking for, so that they can at least, again, not necessarily believe, but at least be educated on what's happening, so that when it does come up, they can speak about it intelligently.
Absolutely. So I use Q Alerts. It's a website. It has every post. That is a great place. What I would tell people that are just getting started and that are skeptical, because look, skepticism is not a bad thing, people. You should be, until you've looked it up. Don't ever just buy what someone's telling you. I'm sorry. But I would start with that. You can go through the posts. If you want to, if it seems a little too daunting to go through 4,966 posts, pick any day, like tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, get up, go into Q Alerts and look what was posted for that day over multiple years. There's going to be multiple posts over years. Go through each of them and then watch the TV, because you're going to start seeing things that are on these posts playing out for real on the TV. That's how you're going to know. And then ultimately, how we prove or disprove the whole Q phenomenon. We were told very early on in post 55 that President Trump at some point is going to come out and he's going to make a post that starts with, "My fellow Americans, the storm is upon us. God bless." That will be the, I would think, the message to everyone that's skeptical that, okay, he's absolutely on board with this, because that was the 55th post they made in, I think it was 2016, 2015. They did that a long time ago. So I would say when that post drops, we all get together and you find us crazy Q people, and you start asking questions. We were trained for this time. Our jobs not only was to learn this stuff and to push back against the New World Order, but we're here to teach when the plan that is in play comes to its fruition. Now, there is a plan. Trump is involved. A lot of people don't believe that, especially with the Q movement. They think that it can't be. They have what's called Q proofs. Anons have posed questions to Q saying, "I want to see Trump say something so I know." And the biggest one that I was telling you about was the word tippy top. In fact, I put out a request yesterday for the same thing. I don't know if they're going to do it. They're busy. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, so how do you respond then to, you know, okay, so that was posted in 2016. You know, we're a decade now, and that still hasn't happened. And then, and if it doesn't happen, is there, like, what's the end game? Does that mean, you know, we've lost, or does that mean that, you know, what's the thought process behind all of that? You know, if this, and again, just to, I want you to reiterate again, like, from what I'm gathering from this. Okay, sorry, I'm gonna tangent a little bit.
No worries.
So from an intelligence perspective, like, so say I'm someone in the intelligence community, right? I'm someone high up in government processes, and I see a lot of things happening. You know, I see the USAID nonsense, like a lot of this stuff. Yes, there's secret compartmentalized information. So even if you have a top secret, it doesn't mean that you're going to be privileged to all of that information,
right?
In your position. But at a high enough position, you are going to be privileged to a lot of that information, right? You're going to be read on to what we like ACMs, or you're going to be read on to an entire program, and then you actually can look through anything in that program. Now, that's tracked, right? So they can see who looked through that program. So you can't just come out and then say that this stuff is happening yourself, because then now you've leaked classified information and you're going to go to jail, or
Right.
at the very least you're going to lose your clearance and you're going to be blackballed from the community and you're never going to be able to do anything in that line of work again.
Right.
So from this standpoint, it makes sense to me how if somebody saw certain things, which I don't think is too crazy either to pontificate about, is that there is a group of, a small group or a group of patriots that saw what was happening especially after 8 years of Obama, right? Like what, who knows what happened during that time and how much fraud, waste, and abuse was just covered up. I mean, I did a post, it was probably a year or two ago, about the DOD and how they failed 8 straight audits, and obviously some of those were under Trump, but that ball was rolling from Obama and all the changes that happened during that 8-year time frame of, and they had a supermajority too. People forget that, like, the Democrats had a supermajority under Obama as well. So they got a lot of things passed that normally wouldn't have been passed in a bipartisan legislature. So,
Right.
so to kind of like, I understand the practicality of the queue. Like, I need to be able to get this information out somehow, and I need to allow people to know that something was there. But I can't come out and just say it. And I get it. So I think there could be something there. Again, I'm a skeptic anytime I hear, and this is just me, just because I'm a skeptic about everything.
Right.
I'm a skeptic about, like, people think that I like immediately just jump onto something. And I'm like, no, I like, when I see something, before I post about it, I go research, and I like, it's to a point where it takes me longer to get even just a normal little post out that may only have 10 words in it, because I'm going to go research what I'm about to repost or what I'm about to do before I'm going to put it out. And so, like, something like this, like, okay, so I mean, how do you verify it? And then, you go through the posts. Okay, you go through the posts, and some of the stuff maybe has come true, some of the key words here and there. But I mean, tippy top is a weird phrase. I guess you wouldn't just use an everyday.
He's used it like 3 or 4 times now.
So and there's stuff like that I think it's not the crazy. I mean, the Q theory, to me, honestly, is less crazy to me than the cabal of evil Jews that rule the world secretly and no one actually knows about it. Like, so in the realm of, like, crazy global conspiracy, which actually this is more like a conspiracy theory against the global
counter conspiracy theory.
counter conspiracy theory, I guess you could say. I don't know, man. I mean, like I said, I would have to look into. I told you before, I looked into it a little bit. Like, this was more back in like the 2016. Of course, I was still active at that time too, so I couldn't be very. I wasn't like vocal online or anything.
Right.
And I asked some people that are a little higher up in the intelligence community, and I was like, is this real? Is there anything to, like, think about this? And they were like, no. So from that point on, I kind of just, like, disregarded it from there. And
a lot of people are like that, and when we were talking about this yesterday, I brought up that only 10 people know what's going on. They've posted that. There's only 10 people, and unless you know one of those 10, they're not going to have a clue what's going on.
Right.
So that's how I would respond to that, because that's a legitimate concern. That I know a lot. If I had a dime for every time someone I know in the military either claimed to be Q or claimed to have inside knowledge of it, I would be a rich man. Even though they said no one has the insight.
I think people, there's always going to be people that also harm whatever you're talking about too, just because they're going to use it in their own means, use it for their own gain or their own means too. So you've probably seen a lot of that, and that's going to turn some people off onto it as well.
Absolutely.
And again, I mean, it's one of those things. I think if you have the time to go through all the posts, like you said. What's the website again? Hold on, I'll pull it up.
So QAlerts.com is one of the ones I use. If you just type Q posts, hit enter, that's probably the highest search result. That allows you to go through it. They've also posted all the Q proofs. There's a lot of information there. What I would suggest, because again, it is a daunting task, I would suggest each day going in and looking at the posts for that day. That's a much easier task. That's going to take you 10, 15 minutes, even if you go to the links and do a little research. Okay, it will put you in today, because at some point, the timelines are going to converge. The posts are going to converge with events that we see transpiring on TV in the world. And that's when it's going to, again, like I said, I'm not trying to sell anyone. Believe whatever you'd like. But at some point, I think, again, if and when Trump drops 55, we just all get on board. That's all. I just want to, again, like we were talking before the show, I'm trying to shorten the amount of time it takes to get from Trump dropping the post to everyone on the same page working to save the republic. Because, guys, it's all hands on deck. This republic is worth saving. It really is.
I'm just looking through some of these. I mean,
now understand, there is also some disinformation in there, intentional. Because the people that posted this were trying to get the New World Order to react. And they were actually really successful. Hence,
I would just suggest, again, I mean, you've already said it too, but just be skeptical about everything. And this is just just like AI is a tool. Yeah. This is just one more tool. Like, it's not necessarily something you believe, but you could maybe go through it, and there might be information that you see, and if certain things are confirmed here and there, and you're like, oh well, maybe some of this stuff might be okay. It might be, I don't know. I'm gonna have to look into it a lot more. I'm gonna have to I probably need it. I'm sure you can aggregate all of this and then have it analyzed.
So what I've said to you, and here's where we're at. So when 55 drops, and everybody's like, oh, wait a minute, those crazy people really aren't crazy. If I'm still alive, holler. I'll come on and explain to you. If I'm not, and it's a possibility, Awakened Outlaw is the person that I've already told him yesterday that if I'm not here for the end, I'm sending you guys his way. He is a solid source. Also underneath that.
Awakened Outlaw?
Yeah.
I'll pull him up in a second so everybody can see his.
Yeah.
I just started following him not too long ago. Why didn't can I just search by post number?
He's a lot like us. He doesn't take. So you can search by number. You can search by. I'll have to look. It's been a minute since I've been on there. I used to use QAnon.pub, but that's now a phishing site or something. So.
This is the right one I'm on, right?
Yes. No, that's it. Yeah, okay. That's it. I'll have to when we get off. I've got to take care of some farm animals real quick, but then I'll come on and I'll be on a little later today, and we can even I'll get on and go through a little bit. If there's enough interest, maybe I'll fire up a spaces and we can go through it. We'll see.
Yeah. Hey, well, it's one more thing to look at, people. I'm not condoning the truth of any of this. I'm not, and I'm definitely a skeptic.
You should be.
And it's just one of those things that I also would hope that there would be more than 10 people that are like really fighting back to save our country.
Well, there's a lot. There's only 10 people that have all of the.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, and you have to think about it. Think about who they're going against.
Right. Well, let me share this.
The enemy is inside the wire, guys. This isn't the enemy without. It's the enemy within.
Yeah.
So
and that's a big problem. All right, let's switch back a little bit. We talked
Sure.
a little bit about some of the Q stuff, and that's something if
Yeah.
people on their own time want to go look into that and see if
Yeah.
it's.
Look it up when you want.
But here we have the main maritime shipping. Let me see if I can make this. Yeah, the shipping choke points. Okay, so just for people that don't understand how the world works, can I make this bigger? I think that's big. Everything everybody can see that. Okay. So obviously everyone knows Strait of Hormuz is now. I probably didn't know what it was 2 months ago, but now it's the new thing, right? Most people, maybe some people have heard of the Suez Canal, the Strait of Gibraltar, the Strait of Malacca is a very important one. So we also have. So here's the crazy thing, right here. Let me share. Actually, just let me zoom. Okay, so the Strait of Hormuz, we have right here. We have a blockade about right in. Can you see the mouse on the screen? Does it show that, everybody?
I can't, but I'm literally looking at my phone, so it's tiny.
Dang, maybe that's.
Nope, I saw it moving. Yes, I can't see the mouse.
Did you see it?
Yeah, I saw it moving. You're over to the right now.
All right. So
once you get on the green background or the white background, I lose it.
Okay, so right here we have a blockade, right?
Right.
All right. So that's the first blockade. We also have ships right here, this area. And why do we have them here? All right. So we have another aircraft carrier strike group out here in this area somewhere ish,
Right.
Who knows exactly that they're not gonna tell you exactly where everything is, right? And then we have up here we have ships and aircraft carrier strike group. Okay. So we have this. We have the Bab el Mandeb, the Strait of Hormuz, the Suez Canal, and the Strait of Malacca, which are 4 of the 5 really. So the Panama Canal, I mean, we never really have to worry about the Strait of Gibraltar, and we don't really the Orzon doesn't really matter to us. It matters to Russia, but it doesn't it's not anything. It doesn't affect all that much in the grand scheme of things. So what the war in Iran has done for the global energy trade is it has allowed us to set up all of these troops in these choke points, and these vessels and these strike groups in these choke points, and now we effectively control what ships are allowed to go through and what who's allowed to trade to what. And again, we're not telling China right now. We're not saying China, you can't get any oil. That's not what we've done. We haven't. Trump even said it's open. We're the blockade's in place on Iranian ports and on Iranian vessels, but other vessels are still going to be able to move freely through all these, and they're not affected by our blockade, and that includes Chinese. But us having that presence there and the Chinese having nothing they can do about it is the point that a lot of people miss in all of this. So now China can no longer, these are leashes. Just look at them that way. These are leashes that we have placed on China that we can tug on if we need to. Oh, you want to get frisky and you want to go over here and try to do something against Taiwan? Guess what? Guess what? Now your oil and natural gas are shut off again from this, and you're gonna have to figure out your resupply lines down from Russia up here and up here, which is it's not gonna it doesn't work as well. Okay.
Yeah.
You're not gonna get the amount, the volume, or get it on the same schedules that you were used to getting it when it was coming through the Strait of Hormuz and through the Strait of Malacca. So that, from a strategic standpoint, has given us basically control of global energy trade de facto, because China was the main one we were affecting, right? Yeah, okay, we affect the world, right? But the world, we already were affecting the world, and we already like our Navy has already affected the world, but now we are pinpoint affecting China, which put the rest of the world on notice. They're like, hey, they just went in. The United States is not playing games anymore. They just went in. They took out Venezuela over here, the main ally of the CCP and of Russia and of Iran in South America, so in the Americas. And you have a little bit of issues with Cuba, but I think we already have that pretty much solved. And so we do that first. That also secures a bunch of extra oil that now can be used in a lot of different ways, and a lot of people overlook that. And then now we've taken all of these other choke points. So say China now is still wanting to get some oil from some of these Middle Eastern countries that they already have deals with. Now, if we were to actually exercise the power that we have right now, they'd have to go all the way around Africa, all the way around here, all the way around. Like, so that increases that. I mean, I think it's some quadruples the amount of time that it would take a shipment to come in. So it's really kind of ingenious, everything that happened. And I think that people just don't understand it well enough to know that, like, realize like how ingenious this all was by Trump and how important it is for us.
Here's the thing, okay? Even right now, China's not getting Iranian oil. We know that, okay? They're not allowed to bring it out. Well, that means they're having to buy it someplace else. And they're not getting the same deal that Iran was giving them. So they're having to spend a lot more money to buy the oil, which that's impacting them as well. It's all about keeping them out of Taiwan, I think. That's just my opinion.
I mean, the Taiwan piece was definitely a big part, for sure. To answer, I have a question here. So let's see, from Texas Motherbird. Where else does China get its oil besides Iran? Russia. Russia. Yeah, that was Venezuela. Saudi Arabia. They get some from Iraq. They get some from the UAE, I believe. So the majority, 50% of it comes from the Middle East, right? So and then from that area, it goes through the Strait of Hormuz. 30% of their natural gas, and most of that natural gas is coming from Qatar. And then the rest of it they get from Russia, and I think they get some from Africa. I don't remember where in Africa, but they get some from Africa as well. But what we're talking about is if once you start disrupting supply chains is the key here. That's the like issue that most people don't understand, is once you start disrupting these supply chains, though new supply chains have to be created, and faith in old supply chains is diminished. And then now the ability to move forward, and do things, on a scale like that China has to operate on. Like, they have 2 billion people, right? So they use not only oil and natural gas is not only their main sources of energy, obviously, and they do a lot of coal as well, but it's not just main sources of energy. That's their all petroleum products come, everything. I mean, oil byproducts are used in almost everything that we do today, and fertilizer, all the stuff. Like, so just to feed their populace, they actually have to be getting this oil in as well. And if they're not getting that, and that's disrupted, that disrupts every aspect of their supply chains, from energy to food to commodities, like everything. So it's a very big deal, and it gets glossed over just because people are on this tactical small view of it, and they're like, our gas went up 47 cents, so I'm super pissed. So
people like their comfort, and when their comfort's interrupted, they're not happy, and that's sad.
It is, and it's just one of it's like if oil had jumped, to like higher than Biden, during Biden, and like been a real significant hindrance to the ability of Americans to undergo everyday life, then yeah, I mean, you would have heard me be like, okay, there had to have been, unless this was the only plan because like a nuke was going to fly tomorrow and they had proof of that. Short of that, then some of these other reasons don't make as much sense. But it didn't do that, it didn't jump up that. I think the most it went up was like $1, and it's already been tapering back down pretty quickly. I think oil, what's crude at right now? Today I didn't look.
Yeah, what this morning?
88.
Okay.
88.12, which is not bad. I mean, again,
no,
so
I'd be happier to see it at 75, but
right. And 75 is a good, so another thing people don't understand is like anything below 66-ish, the United States drilling operations are going to stop. They're not going to start. They're not going to keep drilling and finding more oil when it's 66 or below, because their profit margins aren't high enough to do that. So this also is partially helping us expand our oil and gas operations. I just dropped under 88. Look at that.
nice.
Right before our eyes. So this is helping us, expand, drilling in the United States. It's helping a lot of things it's not that big of an expense for everybody. I mean, again, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that big of a deal, but people are treating it like it's the end of the world. And that just is because, again, podcasters and influencers are often the loudest voice, and it doesn't always make them the right voice.
Right.
They're just yelling into the void, mad about something because they aren't used to going and paying. But like it's these are pissed that they drive a like massive truck that has a 30-gallon tank in it, and they're like, I just spent $125 to fill up, and I'm like, well, you also drive a massive truck that has a big tank, and I mean, gas went up a little bit. That it is what it is, dude. Like, I think it's gonna go back down. I think if this happening is now the reason why you're going to just vote for Democrats, I don't know that you were really ever a on our side in the first place. Like, I don't know that you really were on the side of what we were trying to achieve here. Oh, here, I'm gonna bring up something real quick. Or go ahead. Go ahead while I'm bringing this up.
I was just going to say, I would only add that for those of you who still really don't understand POTUS, he values loyalty probably above all else. Okay. For those of you out there that just can't shut your mouth for 5 minutes when the man's doing his job that we hired him to do, I would just say, let him cook, let him do his job. We hired him for this. And for those of us in the Q movement, we're not freaking out because we were told 8 years ago that this was coming. So when I look at the post, I'm like, oh, yep, that I knew that was coming. So that's why you don't see people like me freaking out, because we have a good idea where this is headed. Again, back to research. If you don't understand something, look it up, or ask me, ask anyone, AO, any number of anons out there. You ask anyone, we will do our best to get you the answer.
All right. So this is one of the posts. Let me see. Share this one. So I did that. A bunch of people were like, what has Trump done for us? And again, what's crazy to me about all this is that, like, I was always the one that, like, a lot of MAGA people would attack, especially after the COVID response. Like, I was not happy with how Trump handled all that, and I was very vocal about it. And so I was skeptical about and obviously there was zero chance I was ever going to vote for Biden or Kamala Harris or any other Democrat that was ever going to get put forward. Like, that's not, like, people would mistake me being like talking, and I don't even want to say negatively, just being critical of things that Trump has done or said as like, oh, you must be a Democrat. I'm like, no, dude, like, I just like, I'm not a sheep that, like, I think there's other things there's things that we should be calling out. There's things that we should be encouraging our leaders to do better. And so that's kind of the thing I would always go. But this is what's crazy to me now is, like, now I feel like I'm one of the, I mean, there's some other big accounts that are still, like, still full Trump or whatever. But now I feel like I'm one of the ones like still like pushing like, hey, Trump's actually not that, he's not doing that bad. That like this time he's actually doing better than the first time, I think, honestly. And you know, the first 100 days were great. A lot of great things happened. And so let's reiterate some of these. So we achieved negative net migration in 2025 for the first time in over 50 years. That's a pretty cool achievement right there. Removed over 2.6 million illegal immigrants through deportations and voluntary self-departures.
Yeah.
I mean, that like it's only been a year and a few months. That's a lot of people that are gone already that shouldn't have been here.
Yeah.
Conducted over 650,000 arrests and detentions of criminal illegal aliens, including killers, rapists, and members of gangs like MS-13 and Tren de Aragua. Cool. Like that seems pretty America first, right? That's really good.
Yeah.
Slashed border apprehensions by up to 96% year over year by ending catch and release, reinstating remain in Mexico, and resuming border wall construction. So now no one's trying to even come in anymore because they know they can't. So just the messaging alone has stopped. There's no caravans coming for the United States because Trump already said like that ain't gonna work, dude. And if a caravan does come and your country doesn't stop that caravan, we're holding you responsible, Mexico, or we're holding you responsible, whoever allowed this to move through your country. And now all of a sudden, weird, you don't see that happening, right? So that's pretty good. They designated a bunch of cartels as terrorist organizations and invoked the Alien Enemies Act, dramatically cutting fentanyl trafficking in the United States. Really good. That's a really good thing. And another thing about that is people, again, we're a microwave society. People want everything right now. They want their results. They want their cake. They want to eat it, and they want to eat it as quickly as possible. But guys, that's not the way our government's set up. That's not the way our Constitution is set up on purpose. Our Constitution is slow moving and slow changing on purpose. It's the founding fathers, for those of you that don't know, were just as afraid. Actually, they were more afraid of a populist uprising that changed and overruled like normal thought and rational thought than they were of a tyrannical leader taking power again. So if that doesn't tell you something like right now, like that is why everything is so slow moving. That is why we're not seeing some of these immediate results that we really want to see, because the process is slow on purpose so that it can't do a 180 correction on a turn of a dime just because certain people won an election, right? That's the whole point.
Yeah, that's what sets us apart. One election, we can't go from being a constitutional republic to a communist dictatorship overnight.
No, we can't. That's a very good thing, because like say 2024 went the wrong way and somehow Kamala Harris would have won, she would have still been hamstrung by our Constitution and by the separation of powers and all the, everything that the founding fathers put into place, which again, these men were not perfect. And I don't know if you've seen it, but I've lagged on it lately because it is actually a lot more work than I initially thought it was going to be. But I'm doing a series called The Constitutionalist Guide, and it goes through, it's a narrative of the history of how the Constitution was created and drafted and argued about. Most people think that the Constitution was just like they came into a room and they were like, hey, this is what it's going to be. And everyone, oh, this is great. This is a great Constitution. Let's sign it. Let's go. Like it was
fist fights.
Right. It was years. If you go all the way back to the Articles of Confederation, like it was a very long time and a lot of debate and a lot of different voices and opinions, and then a lot of compromising went into it. So it's a very interesting story, actually, and I would encourage people to read it. I have it it's on both X and my Substack. The first six volumes of it are free, and then it goes into my paid after that. Right. And I was going to keep it all free, and maybe I'll make it all free at some point, but then I'd realize like I'm legitimately putting, I've put hundreds of hours into it at this point, and so I was like, I think I'm going to put it into the paid part for the last 6 episodes of it, or volumes of it.
Absolutely. Everyone should have a right to make a living. You're not saying if you don't pay me, I'm not going to tell you anything. So that's fine. You should be.
No, and it's just a little. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to do this full time. I've actually I turned down. I almost went back and started working on bass again, but I was like, you know what? I'm comfortable right now. I set some things up to where I'm, we're good. The family's good. And this is, I think this is an important, I think it's important to get some of this information out to people. It just in a rational and like from one normal dude to everybody else. Like I'm not sitting in $100,000 studio. I'm sitting in my game room, my kid's game room upstairs, where my office is tucked into the back wall of it, as you can see. So
I'm in my bathroom.
Hey, do what you got to do.
You do.
So
I don't do video stuff. So it was funny when you approached me. Normally, it's always no, I'm not interested. But I think our initial interaction, I was curious. So
yeah. Again, I was like, let's just get on and have a conversation about some stuff, at least whatever. Like I said, we can disagree on a few things and still understand that the main goal here is to make America better and to educate people on how to make America better. So
we don't have to agree all the time, guys. We don't.
No, you don't. We don't. So we rescue children from the child traffickers. Gas prices again, that's another thing people failed to remember, is that gas prices went down the lowest they were in 5 years.
Yeah.
And then they went back up a little bit, but they're already going back down now again. So good growth. I wasn't a big fan of the beautiful bill, but I put it in here anyway. Wasn't my favorite. So I like some of the aspects of it. There are certain things that were good, but then there are a lot of other, just like all these bills, they always get this other like
pork in them. Yeah.
Pork stuffed in them, and so there's some of that I didn't like, but there was stuff in it that was a win for the American people. So I threw it in there anyway. All these big investments from Apple and these other big companies to come back to the United States and build their factories here and do their work here, as opposed to doing it overseas like they had been doing. That's really big, and people don't understand that. Not only from a from a jobs and like economic standpoint, but just from like also a security standpoint. Like it's much easier to secure, Apple, to make sure Apple is secure in the United States as opposed to it being in Malaysia or wherever the hell. Right. So that's a really big thing. Deregulation is a huge thing that no one ever talks about because no one really understands it. The amount of regulations that went on under, sorry, I'm still getting over. I was on Saturday night. It was a little bit worse. My toddler, she gets me sick often with all the daycare stuff. So I'm always trying to get some crud out one way or another. But people forget about the deregulations that the Trump administration has already done, and the bureaucratic red tape that's been slashed on massive scales all across energy, all across lots of stuff. So a lot of people, like, that's one of the things that's not talking. Maybe I'll do a paper about that. That might be a good one to do.
It's almost bigger than the things that he's doing that's obvious.
Exactly. That one's a really big
really
one.
Is what was killing this country. It was killing innovation.
People don't understand, all the things, if small business owners understand. Small business owners that have had to deal with, some of the stuff that they've had to deal with. I mean, think about, I have friends that they tried to do I have one buddy that tried to do a small business where he was going to get a couple, he lived on a lake. He was going to get a couple of boats, and he was going to take people out and he was going to teach how to fish. Even, it was going to be real economical. It's not super expensive. Right. Like, come on, you learn how to fish, learn how to do all the stuff that, a lot of people are just either, if they didn't have someone in their childhood teach them, once you get to be an adult, you're like, if you don't know how to fish, you don't know how to string a line, like, you don't know what you're doing. It's daunting, and it's you don't even know where to start, right? I mean, yeah, you can go on YouTube and you can watch your videos and stuff, but if you could have someone that could just, hey, come on here, I'm gonna show you how to do it real easy and good and blah blah blah, that's great. Well, he wanted to do that, but the Fish and Wildlife, and this is it's not in North Carolina, this was in a different state. I can't remember which state. I think maybe it was Tennessee, and which is crazy because Tennessee is one of those states that's not highly regulated. But if this was federal agencies operating in these states, and this federal agency was basically they subsidize, they make these businesses pay these fees so that they can monitor them. So these businesses are having to pay, this federal agency a fee, and it's a pretty big like annual fee, and then they're getting extra monitoring done. So you're literally just paying for somebody to like have scrutiny on what you're doing. So it's just an insane like thought process from a capitalist society perspective of like, why am I paying the government a bunch of money to then investigate me on what I'm doing that I'm paying them for that I'm doing? Like, it just doesn't make sense, right? So the deregulation is a really big thing that Trump has done, which is awesome.
That's going to turn the economy right back on.
And it's gonna get better, and it's gonna get progressively better every month. But people just, again, they feel like Trump's been in office now for so long. He hasn't. He's been in office for this term for a year and what, 4 months? It's been 3 months. We're in April. Not that long, guys. Not that long. All right, we have this is a list of all kinds of great accomplishments that no one really wants to talk about. We got Maduro with didn't lose anybody. Like that military operation was
impressive on a level.
Right? Wasn't it? It's so impressive, dude. Like to go in to a presidential compound, no Americans died, nothing, like take the president and his wife that are both running this criminal cartel organization, basically, that they have created their country into now. And that's the thing people don't understand. I did a whole article on this. After Maduro took power, all right, from Chavez, so Chavez came in and stripped away all the rights, made it a communist country. They were, Venezuela was a great country before, as you probably know. They years before. And then Chavez come in, implements all these leftist collectivist policies, takes away guns, collectivizes the entire oil and gas industry in the country, and then they kind of take it over and does his thing. So he's terrible, right? He's bad.
Yeah.
But then Maduro comes in and takes power after him. And Maduro made it worse. And Maduro essentially started using the army and the navy, the Venezuelan army and the navy, as his own personal security for his cartel. And so now you have a nation state that is actually just a cartel. It's just become a cartel. And they're moving drugs, and it is actual uniformed Venezuelan military that was like loading these boats and like shipping them off and like repackaging. Like, this was a state-run operation at this point. And like, how did we allow this to happen? They're literally right across the Gulf from us. How did we allow this to happen? We're the most powerful nation in the world, and we're allowing a country that's very near to us to flood our, borders with all of this. It's just crazy. It's crazy because it's different than like Mexico, right? Like the Mexican government is not the best, obviously, but at least it's not the Mexican government that is the cartel, right? They suck at fighting the cartels because they're not powerful enough, so they're not that great at combating the cartels. But they're also not the cartel, so it's like one of those things. Like, all right, but that operation was amazing. All right, we have the ceasefire in Gaza, which again, that wasn't something that Israel really wanted at that point. I mean, Israel, they wanted the hostages back. Obviously, that was a goal, but Israel wasn't looking for a ceasefire. I mean, and who can blame them? I mean, if I've posed this question to other people before, what would happen to let's turn the tides a little bit and say that Mexico is a hostile nation to us, right? And it has been a hostile nation to us for decades. And they sent militia members across the border clandestinely, and they went into Americans' homes and into concerts and to shopping malls or whatever, and just murdered a bunch of Americans and raped their wives and children and killed them, and then took a bunch of hostages back to Mexico. Like, what do you think would happen to Mexico?
There wouldn't be a Mexico.
There wouldn't. It would be a full-scale war.
Yeah.
There would be and we would be far more. We would do way more destruction than Israel had done. So it's one of those things I always say. I'm like, I get why they weren't really for a ceasefire, because they still have a job to do, and they're like, and this is another thing people don't realize either. Even before the Iran stuff was happening, I mean, everywhere in Israel has bomb shelters all over the place. People don't know this. People don't understand that they have like literally like there's bomb shelters in strategically placed all around the streets, all around everywhere, because when a siren goes off, you maybe have 30 seconds to get to a bomb shelter before some of these rockets are going to be hitting. And it happens all the time. And so it's part of Israelis' daily life is that they are running to bomb shelters and hiding, and waiting, and then they go, and then when the bomb, when they hit or whatever, and it's over, they go back to their normal day life. Like, can you imagine that? Can you imagine walking out to your, job in whatever city? It doesn't matter, just any big city, and then an alarm going off 10 times a day, and while you're outside, you have to run into a bomb shelter. Yeah, like it's crazy to me. And
I'm like, if you don't want to get beat up, don't start something you can't finish. And I think they kind of screwed up on Gaza. They started something that the Israelis are going to finish.
Well, and they did it. I mean, this was, again, you have to remember Hamas is a proxy for Iran. Right. So this was all, and to act like this wasn't coordinated is just to admit that like whoever's talking about this doesn't know how these proxies work. Hamas and Hezbollah and they and the Houthis, they all take their marching orders from Iran. You know what was crazy? People don't realize this either. When I was in Iraq in 2015. We were training the commando forces for Iraq, and there was a lot of Shia Muslims. They were pulling them off from southern Iraq and bringing them in, and it was a bunch of Shia Muslims. And when they were marching, so they're like marching after we'd done some training, and they're like, we're marching back or whatever, and they're like singing their song, just like like American military or any other military would do. They're like singing their song while they're marching. And so I asked one of the interpreters, I'm like, what song are they singing right now? Like, what are they doing? And he was like, you want to know? Yeah. I was like, yeah, I want to know. He was like, they're singing to the Ayatollah. They're marching, singing their allegiance to the Ayatollah. So you have a bunch of Iraqi nationals that are actually pledging allegiance while they're in the Iraqi army to the Ayatollah of Iran. And so a lot of people don't understand that that's just that they had that level of influence Iran had during all this time was significant on all levels of that civilization.
It's I'm going to be glad when that mess is over with. I think once Iran is off the table, we're actually going to see a little bit of peace. I hope.
I do too. I think that and Pavli, I think Pavli would be the best one to take that over. It would be a monarch, which again, most Americans are like, oh, they're gonna have a king. Like nobody, that's not that great. Again, you can't push American ideology on anyone else in the world because there's no one that views the world the way that we do. And that's a problem. You can't even do it to Europe. You can't you also can't think about history, like European history in American terms. So, because you can, if you look at like Europe from the 30s, say 1930s, before World War II kicked off, Hitler and Mussolini were technically right wing, especially compared to those that they were combating and those that they were fighting, right? Because there was
National Socialist Party,
the National Socialists, the Communists, right, and all of that. So them as the fascists or as the national, and against the Social Democrats too, like in Germany. So but people don't understand that like there was no other alternative back then in Europe at that time. There was nothing more right. So they were still left, right? So like Hitler would decry communism and the way collectivist was happening in Soviet Ukraine and Soviet Belarus and all that area. And he would say how that is a view of a failure of communism. But then he would implement the same type of policies on specific industries inside of Germany after he took power. So like they message it differently and they act like they're different, but they're really the same. They're just really, it's like the communists or the Soviets or the Marxists, if you want to, whatever, Stalinism under Soviet Russia was, they elevated the class struggle collective. So like, we are this class, and we're gonna create a struggle against the other class. And so and they always had to have an enemy. So for the Soviets, that was the kulaks. I don't know if you've ever heard that, but, and there was no definition of a kulak. It wasn't ethnic. It wasn't, it was just a peasant, right? So you were just, if you were considered a peasant, you weren't working in, you weren't a richer citizen inside of the cities. You weren't part of the industrial process. Then you were a farmer. You were really a kulak. But at the same time, they could label anybody a kulak. It was just up to whoever was in charge at the time locally. And if you did something wrong, then they would just label you as a kulak and they would kill you, or they would send you to a gulag. And it's really actually crazy. There's a book. I'm gonna pull this up so that everybody can see this, because I do want to show that. But this is one of these books that everyone should definitely read. Let me see if I can I'll pull it up on Amazon and everybody can see it.
Yeah, Gulag Archipelago is on my next to read list. I think that's another mandatory reading nowadays.
Yeah, no, Gulag, that is a good one. Definitely read that one. That one opens your, both of these will open your eyes, but that one is very important to understand the gulags and understand that the real, like, so Gulag actually translates directly to concentration camps, like it worked, death concentration camps, or however you want to put it that way. That's what it was. That's literally what it means. And so the Soviets started that, and the Soviets were far more like Stalin. I mean, the amount of people they killed and starved before Hitler had even started his killing yet was astronomically higher. And a lot of people don't know that, but that's why this book right here, guys, The Bloodlands by Timothy Snyder. Like, if you want the best view of what happened that led up to Hitler and Stalin taking power, and then through World War II and all the ins and outs of that, read this book, and I guarantee you your eyes will be opened and you will be like, oh my gosh, this is insane. And
I will definitely get that.
It is insane. And so it's crazy to show you, like, he talks about it in here. He talks about how the Soviets, so they had their enemy. So the way collectivism always has to work is you have to have an enemy. The failure cannot be the fault of the state or the collective ideology, because then that threatens the state or the collective or the ideology of the state. So you have to have some other enemy. So when collectivism was failing in, like, Ukraine, for example, in Soviet Ukraine, in the early 1930s, like 1928, 1929, when they started collectivization, and the amount of Ukrainians that just died, like millions died of starvation. It's absolutely insane when you think about it. Hitler or Stalin knew, like, he was being told, and they weren't making their quotas, right? They weren't getting the grain and everything that was supposed to be coming into the city. And he basically said that the kulaks were the enemy, because they are pushing back so hard against collectivism, against the collectivism of Mother Russia, of the Soviet Union, that they are willing to die in protest rather than serve the state. And so then he made him an enemy that way too. And so then he just started killing more of them. And that's just, like, people don't understand that that's the way they always had to have an enemy. And it's the same way. So if you go look at the Great Terror, right, and he talks about it in this book too, it's insane. When Stalin, once the kulak issue was kind of dealt with, they killed millions of kulaks, and then they go a few years, and collectivism's kind of evened out. They've got enough people in there where they kind of figured out how it's going to work, and it's not as terrible. Like, people aren't starving to death anymore, but things aren't great, right? But they're not, at least, like, millions of people aren't starving to death anymore, because they've lowered the population enough where they don't have to feed a bunch of people, as many people, right? Solved a problem there by just killing everybody. But then he revisited it because they didn't have an enemy and he needed another enemy. So all the kulaks that they didn't kill, that they had sent to the gulags, they started going to the gulags and then killing them in the gulags and giving them show trials and killing them later. And because of the things that they had done in the past, so that they could have that enemy. And then they generated the enemy, the Polish enemy, right? So I'm not going to go into all the details of that, but they created an enemy of the Polish people inside of the Soviet Union. And it's something insane that like, there's only like 600,000 Polish people that were living in the Soviet Union at the time. Most of them were in Belarus, Soviet Belarus and Soviet Ukraine. And 3 out of every 4 of those Polish people during the Great Terror, the Polish cleansing, I guess you could call it, or whatever. 3 out of every 4 that they arrested were killed. So 75% of everyone that they arrested were killed, and very few Poles that were actually arrested by the NKVD at the time were like survived. Like it's just crazy stuff. So that's definitely, I would definitely encourage people to go read that book. I don't know where we got off a tangent, I think, but
all good.
Hey. But no, I think people just need to recognize that the rest of the world. Oh, we were talking about how Europeans don't and Americans and everyone, they don't believe the same things. They don't look at the world the same ways. We learned that the hard way in Iraq and Afghanistan, especially Afghanistan. Afghanistan is highly tribal. I think there's like 120 different tribes or something like that, 110 different tribes of different people. They they have their own views. They don't want a central government telling them what to do. And you definitely don't want a government that the people believe was in place by a foreign power like the United States, because then they're never going to trust it. So I'm hoping, and that's why you're going to have some faith with what's happening right now, especially like in Iran. Like, I think we can decimate the IRGC. I think we can decimate the Quds Force, and I think we can get rid of all the Iranian regime leadership, or at least enough of it to fracture it to a point where it can't operate anymore. And then then the Iranian people can decide on their own, and hopefully, hopefully we can like guide it so certain groups like the NEK or some of these other far left Marxist groups that are inside of Iran don't end up winning and taking control, because that would be just as equally disastrous. But they're not going to get a U.S. Constitution style democracy, right? No. That's just not.
I am on the Shah side just because I've known Persians my whole life. They were all loyalists to the Shah. So, I mean, that's how I grew up. I understand that there are some people that aren't happy with him. I do think it's good that he's like, I'm not looking to be in power. I want to be part of the solution. I want to get our country fixed. And I personally, I support him. But I've been, everybody asks, who do you support? Who do you support? I support whatever the people want. I think that they need to have a say at this point after 47 years of enslavement. I think we should listen to what they want.
Oh, and I agree. And the way I look at it from a U.S. victory standpoint, right? If you want to kind of call it that, is that whoever takes power in Iran just rejoins the world, like the rest of the world's stage. We get to have an embassy. We get to have embassies and consulates there. Now, like traveling and going to visit Iran for leisure and stuff would be something that could happen in the near future. And now there's trade talks, and now they're part of the solution in helping to dismantle these proxy networks that the previous regime helped set up. So those are all really big victories that would not only are they great for America, but they're great for the Middle East, and they're great for the rest of the world, because now the Middle East isn't now Lebanon, they're not going to have a proxy that's funded and backed and armed and run by a nation state that is trying to divide them. Gaza's not going to have that anymore. The Houthis are going to finally be able to be defeated in Yemen, right? Like all these things that people don't think about. If Iran's no longer there supporting all of these terrorist actors, these terrorist organizations are going to have a harder time surviving. Some of them will still survive in very smaller aspects, and like getting every one of them, they're like little cockroaches, right? You're never going to probably get every single one. They're going to have their little splinter cells, but you can get them to a point where they're no longer affecting anything beyond just the occasional annoyance.
You cut their funding to degrade them to the point where they're not combat effective.
Right, exactly. And so once you get to that point, then you see actual peace in the Middle East, because you know what's right next to Israel? Jordan and Egypt. And since 50 whatever, when was the last time Egypt and Jordan fought Israel? It's been a while. It's been a long time. They've lived in relative peace, and I think they will continue to live in relative peace if there's not somebody stirring up the pot all the time and shooting rockets at each other and then like just creating chaos all the time. You take that out, right? And now you only have individual cells of these like terror people. Like they're easier to deal with. They're not state funded. They're not state backed. They don't have an intelligence community back behind them, giving them targets and and all the stuff. Like that's another thing people don't understand is like Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis and all of these other the Shia militias in Iraq and the Shia militias in Syria, they're all getting Iranian intelligence as well, or they were, right? So that's another huge factor on the battlefield that people disregard. They there's more than just rockets and bullets and guns and vehicles. There's intelligence is a very huge part of fighting these wars.
And knowing where your enemy is important.
Right, and as a guerrilla force, which is essentially what these terrorist organizations are, they operate in the civilian populace. They don't operate as overt forces. They can move through the shadows, and then they can strike and move back into the shadows. You don't have a clear enemy to go hit right then. So, with a robust intelligence community behind them, which was Iran, which was supported by Russia and China. Now, once that's all gone. Now you've not only have you crippled Russia and China's intelligence apparatus inside of the Middle East, but you have crippled the intelligence apparatus that's backing all of these terrorist actors that are working to destabilize the entire Middle East, Northern Africa, and all the region, all the way up to Turkey and the entire Arabian Peninsula. So like all right, so there's a lot of really good that can come from this once the Iranian regime is no longer ran by Islamic theocracy, the jihadists, that's just the bottom line there, man. So, well,
I don't think many of them are going to be left in the country either. I think the Persians have made it plain that they need to leave. I've heard, I actually heard Syria at one point. They were talking about relocating.
Well, I mean, think about Germany after the Nazis fell and after Hitler died. The dudes in the SS and the Gestapo, they didn't want to stay in Germany anymore. They were doing everything they could to try to get out because they knew what was going to happen. They knew what was going to happen if the German people got a hold of them after that point, because it's one of those things. It's like, I mean,
all the German officers that were captured by the Russians, none of them survived. None.
Yeah. Well, that was all. I mean, so Hitler's first big mass murders were the Soviet prisoners of war that he took when they went through, eventually after they took Poland and then they went into Soviet Ukraine and so on and so forth. So it's just two historically evil people, two murderous, terrible people killing millions and millions of people indiscriminately in their, I mean, Hitler also killed more non-Jews than he killed Jews. The Jews was what he used. That was his. So like we talked about, the Soviets had the kulaks, the Nazis had the Jews. That was their scapegoat. That was their enemy at the gates, which is insane to me because there was only I think the German population, I think in Germany during Hitler's rise, someone can correct me. I don't remember the exact number. It was very, very low. Like there wasn't a lot of Jews living in Germany anyway. It wasn't a massive diaspora there. There was a lot more in Poland and
Right.
neighboring countries than there were in Germany. So, and when Hitler came into power, a lot of the Jews inside of Germany left because they were like, all right,
Yes.
this dude's back. And one of the arguments you hear from these people that are like pro-Hitler, they're like, well, he didn't start out that way. You know, it evolved into it. I'm like, no, you obviously have never read Mein Kampf because he talks about exterminating the Jews in Mein Kampf, which he wrote long before he was ever in power. So like, don't take that argument either, you know, like, so yeah, it's history is super interesting to me. That's why I get into like I get into little tangents where I'm like, because it's just,
I like it, but I also I'm watching us repeat some of it.
Well, that's why I like it so much, because I'm watching today and I'm seeing all of these. It's the exact same talking points, the exact same things that Hitler was saying are the exact same things that they were saying in 1903 in Russia. And
Right.
so he just revamped it and packaged it up for his to use against the German population,
Right.
to radicalize the German population. And now we're seeing it today getting pushed again to radicalize the American population against the same. It's just that's what we're seeing. And anybody who has a brain and has studied any kind of history would be able to see that as well. And so that's what's really frustrating to me is like guys, I just don't like being lied to, right?
Yes.
Like at the end of the day, like even if
that's why doing your own research is so important, because you're going to get to the bottom, to the truth.
Yep. So crazy world we live in, but hey, so well, you got anything you want to add on to like the Iran or
I think we're pretty good. We've covered a lot of ground today.
Yeah, we did. We talked about a lot of stuff. We don't have that many questions. Sometimes we got this one on Rumble. Soviet supported insurgencies adjacent to ever. Yes, they did. Right, and it's another point. Let me pull this back up. Well, whatever. No, it's gonna take too long. The other point that a lot of people don't understand is that the CCP, so China, was using the chaos that the Iranian proxies were creating in northern Africa. So you have you have them destabilizing areas, you have them attacking certain areas and doing damage to things, doing stuff that the government couldn't actually handle, which then so another thing people don't know, the United States has criteria that is pretty stringent on when working with another nation state to do certain things, especially trade or infrastructure or development or any of that kind of stuff. They have to meet certain criteria like corruption level scales, like all these things. And if they don't meet that, then the United States will not work with them. And so a lot of these places in northern Africa where the Belt and Road, where China's trying to push its Belt and Road Initiative really, really hard right now, a lot of those places are hit with, a bunch of chaos. They have a bunch of corruption because a lot of their officials are involved in these organizations that are involved with Hezbollah or with the Houthis or with any of the other Shia militias that are tied to Iran. And because of all that, then they're now the United States isn't going to be able to work with them. And so, and China knows this. China knows our policies. China knows all of our regulations. China knows our international, like the way that everything works for us. So then they swoop in after a chaotic event that has turned the United States off to like development or doing something with that country. And they get them to sign a better deal. That's a better deal for China, because now this country is whatever country we're talking about is in a worse position than they were before, and they're getting desperate to the point where they need some kind of outside influx to help them move forward and build infrastructure. And so China was swooping in and doing that all for the last 20 years. I do want to pull this up. One more thing before we go.
It's how they cornered the market on rare earth minerals. You have to hand them that. They did a really good job with rare earth minerals.
Yeah, here, let me pull this up. All right, here. Some of you may have seen this. Oh, I have to quit sharing the screen. Hold on 1 second. Stage. Okay. So some of you may have seen this. So in 2000, all right, let's see if I can, that's too much. All right, so U.S. global trade dominance, 2000. You have, this is what the world looked like as U.S. trading partners versus Chinese trading partners. Okay. Yep. We're doing great, right? We're doing great things. We're trading with everybody. Everything looks pretty cool. This is 2024, guys. If that doesn't open your eyes right there to how important all of this was to get into Iran and to help kind of take over the global trade routes and ensure that we kind of are in charge, or at least have a say. I don't even say necessarily in charge, but that we have a say in what is going on in the world. This is the only thing you need to look at. Like this, like just this is insane.
And Venezuela and Iran are going to be really big pushbacks against that.
Yep. Again, 2024. This is the war. This is the real war.
Yeah.
So
notice they never talk about China being our enemy, though.
Oh, nope, never. It's insane.
Yeah, I've always been. I know who my enemy is, and I have always sat back just dumbstruck at how we just let them do whatever. Come on in, we'll send you to our schools, we'll educate you, and then we wonder why we're not doing well against them.
Yep.
Which is part of the reason that Trump is so popular, because people are tired of being sold out, and that's I think becoming pretty clear to everyone.
Yeah. Well, my baby's downstairs getting angry, so I think it's good. I think we went over quite a bit of stuff, and hopefully everybody kind of has a better. Anybody who's been following me, some of the information is what we've been talking about this whole time. So nothing crazy, nothing new, but it's important for people to kind of understand how the world actually works and the importances of what we're doing right now. So, Will, thank you again for just being a normal human being and, acting like a normal person. And I was like, you know what, let's just go have a normal conversation because of that. So
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you coming on, and everybody, thank you so much for hanging out with us for a little while and just shooting the shit with us. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. And just remember, question everything, always.
Absolutely. Do your homework.
Absolutely. All right. See y'all.
Bye.